Welcome, everyone. We are coming to you live from the Stonerose Fossil Interpretive Center in Republic, Washington. And I welcome you now to the second installment of our Conversations series, this episode entitled Top 10 Stonerose Fossils. And today I am joined by paleobotanist Dr. Melanie DeVore. Melanie is a professor in the Department of Biological and Environmental Sciences at Georgia College. Melanie also joined us for our first installment in the series a couple of months ago, and she's returning now to help us reveal these top 10 Stonerose fossils. So for this episode, we asked that you, our faithful fossil hunters, send us your favorite Stonerose fossil. We ask that you send a photo or two and a story telling us why it's so special to you. So some of these are maybe particularly beautiful, well-preserved specimens. Some may be here because they are a rare find or of scientific importance, and others, maybe it's just because it was a great story behind the experience you had when you found it. So I want to start off by thanking you not only for tuning in, but for providing the content we have to share with you today. So thank you for that. So here we go. Let's begin. We're going to start with number 10, and we'll work our way up to the number 1 Stonerose fossil. So the staff here at Stonerose looked at these submissions, and we kind of prioritized them in order. And so funny enough, the number 10 here is from myself, Soleil Kabakov. And this is one that I found 20 some years ago, and it was actually housed in our collection. So that first image you see is part of our collections, and that drawer that's pulled out is actually so high, it was above my head. I had to get a step stool to get up there to make sure I could get that specimen out for this show. So that was kind of fun. I thought I wanted to show where that was housed. And so the fossil itself was found when Dr. Kirk Johnson was here, like I said, about 20 years ago, and he was doing a study. And I found this particular specimen, and I was so excited just because it's so beautiful. And I split it open, and there you can see the A and the B side. And this is a corylus. And at the time, Dr. Johnson said, "Oh, wow, this is so special. We're going to keep it." And I think something that many of you can relate to is when I first heard we're going to keep it, I thought, oh, they're going to keep it. And then when I realized the importance of the find and why they needed it, my reaction became, oh, they're going to keep it. It's so exciting. And so actually this particular specimen, I have it here, if you want to switch to this camera, was being described at the time and is now named Corylus johnsoni. So what's fun for me is getting to work with Dr. Kirk Johnson and provide him with a specimen that he could use in describing this beautiful, beautiful plant. So Melanie is with us here. Melanie, I wonder if you have anything you want to share about this corylus and this specimen itself with us.
Well, how many people like Nutella? It's the same family, but I think one of the things that I think some of our friends that come to Stonerose might have questions about is, well, how do you name a plant? How do you get these names? And you'll notice that there's a number of different names that you see associated with plants. So when you say corylus, that would be like the equivalent of your last name, like Smith or Harris or Jones. And then the last part would be like your first name. And so, one is a generic name and one is a specific epithet. And these specific epithets often honor people. So and sometimes they're named for a place where a plant is from. And of course, many of you, when you talk about taxonomy, you think of Carl Linnaeus. And Linnaeus would establish the rules for naming plants. It's the start of what we call nomenclature. But what was interesting is he had students that went all over the world, and they brought back all of these plants and put them on his desk. and sometimes the piles got confused. So there's a milkweed named Syracuse. Some of you, if you're in the Midwest or you spend time in the Midwest, that's the common one. And Syracuse, you think, well, Syria. Well, it turned out that Linnaeus thought that this plant from North America came from Syria. So that's just one thing. So it's really neat. There's a lot of plants that have come from Stonerose that have been named after people. So if you think about them, folks, go ahead and put them in the chat. So if you have a favorite name or a favorite fossil that you know that's named after somebody, whether it's an insect or whether it's a plant, go ahead and feel free to write it in the chat.
Excellent. Yes. All right, so let's move on. Number 9 came to us from a Stonerose volunteer called Ruby. There's Ruby. So Ruby says, I love going to Boot Hill with Greg to assist the diggers. He never seems to get my blankie just right. So one time when I fixed it, I turned over a rock. This made him very happy. Why? I don't know, but he gave me lots of loves. And if you look down by her paw, you can see that there is a fossilized leaf there by her paw. And if we go to the next image, we do have a close-up of that beautiful sycamore fossil that our wonderful 4-legged volunteer Ruby found. And that is just so much fun. The colors in this one are just gorgeous.
Yeah, all the different mineralizations you get in the Republic fossils are really neat.
Yeah, a really special one. And then I just heard that we're going to have another person joining us here in a few minutes, Dr. Kathleen Pigg. So we'll see what she has to say as well when she chimes in here. I just thought that was the sweetest thing, that our little doggy Ruby found a fossil. I love it. Okay,
so Ruby is Greg's best friend.
Yes, that's right. One of our super volunteers, Greg's dog Ruby. So we're going to move on to number 8 in the top 10 Stonerose fossils. This comes to us from Norm Terry. And Norm says his entry is a pine cone. I found this on opening day of this year. I felt it is very interesting because of the large section of the cone left intact within the shale. It completes the grouping of the 2, 3, and 5 needle forms of leaf sheaths and the winged seed fossils I had found earlier. So thank you, Norm. This is just gorgeous. We have, I think, a second image of it.
Ooh.
I mean, look at that. You can really see, you can go back to that image, the depth of that. It's just incredible. It's really incredible.
That's
isn't
beautiful. You know, and I really like the submission that Norm, besides the fossil, the way he described it, because it brings up an important point. Is, you know, so many of our friends that are here, you might have gone to the coast and found a crab or an ammonite. Maybe you went to the trilobite site that I know some visitors from Stonerose go to, and you have the whole animal, or at least you have the whole shell, I should say. And for those of us that study fossil plants, what we often have to do is we have to put the plant together again. So when you described that, that you need the seeds and the cone and so forth, you have to carefully put the plant back together again. And sometimes you can look at internal features, like the different cell patterns when it's preserved and sort of what you would call permineralized or petrified. But sometimes what we have to do when you have fossils like Stonerose fossils that are flat is to compare the patterns of the cells on the outside of the epidermis, what we call the cuticle. So one of the things we do is we put plants together, and recently Kathleen and I, well, I don't know how recent it was, several years ago, we put together a fossil water lily, and we could do that because in the Stonerose collection, you have the seeds, you had the rhizomes, you had parts of the leaf. So literally you could go to the drawers and put together this plant that hadn't been put together for 49.7 million years.
Oh, it's so cool. And just a little housekeeping here, Melanie. When you're speaking, I don't see you. Is your camera on?
Let's start
Sorry
the video.
about that. I want to make sure folks can see your face and when you're talking.
Right.
Yeah.
Since I'm not part of the 2.000.2% of the population that's a total mutant, get that video on.
Yeah, maybe you can see if you can get that going and we can move on here. Let's see. That was number 8. So thanks again, Norm. What a gorgeous cone. Wow, I have never found something like that. I really would love to find something like that myself someday. So moving on, number 7 in our top 10 Stonerose fossils comes to us from Stonerose volunteer Carl Volkman. Now, Carl is one of the few folks that I remember from years ago coming as a child with his family. And I can only imagine the number of fossils he has found over the years. I mean, it must be just a huge number. But interestingly, this was the only fish that we had submitted for our top 10. So here's what Carl had to say about this fossil. He says, the Hyodon woodruffy was my first large, almost complete fish find. I found it in 2003 after having been visiting Stonerose for 10 years already, showing that sometimes it takes persistence to find that awesome fossil. While other times it's the first visit and something totally new to science. So true, Carl, you never know. And I looked at that little fish and I thought, wow, that is amazing. I don't know what happened to that poor guy, but it's so complete. It's really, really fascinating. And even the rock that it's in, the matrix, is very interesting with the mineral stains around it. You can see how fractured it is. It looks like a thin piece, thin layers there.
That's a totally beautiful plant, boy, fish. You know, that's the other thing is for many times when you see fish, you find maybe you're out in Curlew Lake and somebody has caught a fish and it didn't quite, it wasn't real successful with the catch and release options and the fish is dead. You notice sometimes they get bloated or you see them torn apart. But I think it's fascinating how these delicate things like these fish and these flowers just basically get floated in and then just sank to the bottom of the lake. And so you can see that again, that fish is so perfect. It hasn't been distorted, or it hasn't even been, you know, nothing's eaten it, nothing's scavenged it even. And
right.
So it's totally perfect. So it had to have been buried rather rapidly, but yet still been gently dropped down into the bottom of the lake to be preserved. And again, at the bottom of the lake, there's not a lot of bacteria. There's little oxygen. So, you know, when something settles down quickly and very gently and can be stuck on the bottom where there's not a lot of oxygen for the bacteria, you will not have that destruction of the fish. And there's Mark Wilson, I believe, who was at, somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, was at the University of Alberta. Did a lot of the work, I believe, with those fish. Or Carl can jump in. I think Carl probably has met Mark Wilson on a number of occasions.
I bet he has, yeah. But I just love this fish. So thank you again, Carl, for sending this in. It's really lovely, and it's number 7 in the top 10 Stonerose fossils. And I am learning that Dr. Kathleen Pigg is joining us. So thank you, Kathleen. Let's see, Kathleen is a professor in the School of Life Sciences and the curator of fossil plants at Arizona State University. So welcome, Kathleen. Okay, moving along. Let's jump to number 6. Now, boy, look at this. This made the top 10 as really the most creative presentation. Now, this comes to us from Robert Dashiell. And let me tell you what Robert has to say about this fossil that he submitted. Found August 17th of 2010 and identified as a needle from the Chinese yew genus Amentotaxis. Although it's not as dramatic in appearance as many other fossils, it was reportedly a very rare find at Stonerose. And the trees now apparently only grow natively in the subtropical areas of Southeast Asia. Rare finds are always interesting. And this was the first one that I got a letter from Stonerose after identification. And that research and letter were a very pleasant and welcome surprise. Now, I love this. He adds at the end a note that says, The skeleton is just a prop for holding the fossil. Yes, but it's a great choice, and that jawbone as a framework for this beautiful, perfect yew leaf is just it's just gorgeous. I love what you did there with that, Robert. So
Yeah,
Kathleen, since you've just joined us too, I wonder if you want to jump in. If you have anything you want to talk about the yew tree or this particular specimen here, please feel free.
Okay, my internet is totally down at home. Sparkle's really disappointed because she wanted to be here, so I had to come into the lab.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you for joining us,
No,
even
it's
with
fine.
those circumstances. We
Well,
so
the
appreciate it.
internet is just bad sometimes, you know. Yew trees. Melanie, what is there to say about yew trees? There's something with lore. Isn't there some kind of famous lore about the yew trees being ancient and
there's
druid?
just so many gymnosperms that you have at Stonerose, and it's interesting what a mix of diverse gymnosperms and also hardwoods. So you don't think of a forest like that. We think about what we see today, where we have these boreal forests that are dominated by some of these conifers, and then you have these temperate deciduous forests that have some conifers in it, and just the diversity of gymnosperms. And I guess, Kathleen, if we can spill the beans and talk about one of the projects we're finishing.
Yeah, you could do that. I just found out well, keep going.
Okay. So one of the projects is many of you know Jean Day, and Jean Day had a special love for these Stonerose gymnosperms. And of course, we want to honor all the work that she did and all of the energy that she spent and her incredible talent as a photographer. She has had a great eye for capturing all of the nuances and the beauty of gymnosperms. And so we have funding and support to be able to do a gymnosperm guide that was really something that Jean Day spent an awful lot of time to put together. So we'll be able to get that out and have it done the way Jean Day wanted it done. And of course, this would be a nice sample specimen to put in.
I should say a couple of things. Jean Day was a lady who lived in Seattle, and so photography was kind of her avocation. And she had been wanting to write this book for a long time. And then maybe about 10 years or so ago, we got on it and helped her kind of organize things. And so she would come over to Republic and we get together and talk about things. And I have a lot of her images, and then I took some. She passed away this past year. I don't know exactly when, but she was in her early 80s, I believe, and had some health issues for some time. But just a delightful lady, and she had a wonderful eye for things. Okay, I was just looking up the yew, and I was going to tell you that yews are conifer trees with red berries, berry-like fruits. They're not berries, but they look like, and they're not really fruits either. This is just wrong. This is all wrong. I not believe in Wikipedia ever. They're linked with folklore, but it doesn't tell me, and superstition, and can live to be great age. And the timber is used in cabinet making. And what else do we know about yews? Taxus, right? Melanie?
Yeah.
Taxus?
Yeah, we think of junipers and these.
No. I'm thinking economically useful, important. You're wearing parrots, huh?
I am not wearing pink parrots. These are blue jays.
Okay, they are blue jays. Okay. I had this
They
I had a Sonny O'Connor vision of the guy with the parrots, but you know. Mm-hmm. Taxol, the cancer drug.
Oh, that's right. There, I know where you're getting from.
Is made from yew tree. Was originally made from the bark of yew trees, and yew trees were not really thought to be particularly good lumber trees, but they were there. And then they discovered this chemical, and it took many years to get it certified. And then shortly after they got it certified, they figured out how to make it synthetically. And so for breast cancer and uterine cancer, it's still a drug that's used a lot. So sometimes your plants that are just sitting out there being conifers and not causing much trouble end up having some real value to them.
Actually, for anybody who's pop culture or they're streaming Netflix at the moment, there's a movie called When a Monster Calls, and it makes this connection with the special tree, this tree that's a yew tree, and the boy in the movie is dealing with his mom's death of dying of cancer, and they talk about this very thing about the power of Taxol. And
what is that movie? It's on Netflix.
When a Monster Calls.
When a Monster Calls. Huh.
Mm-hmm.
Ancient yew tree, where Druids may have worshipped, shortlisted for the tree of the year. The kingly vale, great yew. I mean, Druids always get the worst rap. I mean, really, it's because they're over all the crap. I mean, I'm a Druid background myself, so I know this.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, no, yew trees are there. There is a lot of lore about them, so that's neat that there's a movie
Well,
now.
this is just a great specimen, and thank you, Robert, for sending it in. We're going to move on now. We're getting into our top 5. So the next fossil came to us from Rita Weichel. She actually submitted 2 different fossils, and one of them did make it to the list here, coming in at number 5. And let me just say what Rita sent in about this one. She says she calls it the mystery boot hill leaf. And she says, the guys couldn't ID it when I brought it in, had never seen one like it. So into the collection it went. I don't know if it was ever identified, but consider it the coolest leaf ever and deserving of a place in Stonerose's first ever top 10 event. And then in parentheses, she adds, okay, I'm a teensy bit biased. But thank you so much, Rita. This is a gorgeous leaf. And one thing that I thought was actually kind of humorous is that if you look at the tag,
I see that
there,
name.
look what we see, Melanie's name right there. So maybe, were you here then when this fossil was found? Melanie, do you remember?
I remember that leaf type, and there's quite a few of them that do come in. And of course, that would have been a larger leaf that, that may not be the petiole, the stalk that attaches it to the bottom. That could actually be a part of the center of the leaf that's torn off. Kind of hard to tell.
Mm-hmm.
But
it's just so beautiful. There's a lot of detail too.
It's got a little friend in the corner there too, in the bottom, which is looks like one of the really common things we find.
mm-hmm.
Okay, let's move on. So number 4 in the Stonerose top 10 fossils. This comes to us from one of our members, Lee Johnson. And again, wow, presentation. This is just gorgeous. So here's what Lee has to say about this find. Here is my candidate for top 10 fossil. I found it at Stonerose maybe 5 years ago. I can't find the paper that tells me what it is. I think it was a type of seed pod or bracken. Anyway, it's my favorite find so far. I've mounted both halves in a frame and have it hanging on the wall. Top 10 finalist or not, I love the hunt for treasures like this every summer. And I just was floored by how gorgeous this looks and the way it's put together with the 2 halves like that. It's almost like a Rorschach test. It can be so many things. At first I thought it's a sea creature. Wait, it's a butterfly. It's just so beautiful.
Lovely.
So he's not sure though what it is. I'm curious if Kathleen or Melanie, if you have any idea. He's saying he thought it was a type of seed pod or bracken. Is bracken a fern?
Bracken is a fern. Tuffy, what do you think, Melanie?
You can crank up the size of it a little bit.
I don't know if we can zoom in on that image. I don't think so.
There's the man in the moon, and there's an arachnid, and there's...
This isn't a flower at the base, is it?
It's hard to tell. There's 2 things going on there, I think, it looks like. And I need to know about the top. I'm sorry I came in late and missed the first 5 or so.
It looks like it's the top of a shoot.
Hmm.
What do you think, Kathleen?
I think there's 2 different things going on. I think the 2 things that look like the C-shaped thing with some kind of bract maybe thing with might be a fertile, maybe a shoot of some sort with a big leaf and a little leaf, and then below it, subtending at the very bottom, there's a 3rd leaf on there. And then I think the dark stuff on the top that making up the little antennas on is something different. I think there's 2 things pasted on top of each other. You think?
Yeah. It looks like it's been transported, and it's been, of course, when it's been transported, you can see how the edges and part of the leaves and the material was just kind of, folded.
Yep.
And contorted.
It does bring up just another challenge that you have as researchers to really figure out, are you looking at one thing? Like Kathleen's suggesting, maybe it's even 2 different things that are layered on top of each other. So it gets very, very tricky.
It's always good to have part and counterpart, and you can see below it, even that little tiny thing below it. I don't know if it's an insect bit or a plant bit. You have both the part and counterpart too, because it's split.
Yeah, Gorgeous presentation. So thank you again, Lee Johnson. Amazing,
Beautiful.
isn't it? Okay, so moving on. Coming in at number 3. Oh, wow, look at this beautiful
Oh.
leaf. So this comes to us from Scott Herrick from Spokane. And he has a really cool story here, which is partly why this is number 3 on our top 10 list today. So let me tell you what Scott has to say about this find. I found this on a Stonerose workshop with Wes Weir in 1997. He kept the counterpart, which I'm pretty sure is in the Burke collections. He wasn't sure what it was, though he made some guesses. Last year, after watching Caroline Stromberg's virtual talk about Stonerose, I sent her a picture of both the leaf and a photo from the Stonerose ID booklet, which had come out after Wes's death, and I suggested it looks a lot like a maple from the booklet. She agreed and wrote back, saying so too did some of her colleagues. So that's why it's my favorite Stonerose fossil, very mysterious. And Scott was so kind, he not only sent in this beautiful image of the fossil, he also sent a copy of a letter that he got from Wes, which is so special. And so I just want to take a moment to say, for those of you who aren't familiar with Wes Weir, he really is essentially the father of Stonerose. He started coming here decades ago and really helped to inspire others to pursue paleontology. He made sure that researchers around the world were aware of the fossils coming out of the fossil beds here. And he really did a lot to help Stonerose become the organization that it is today. So it's just particularly special, and we thank you, Scott. He also sent in the ID booklet that he was referring to that came out later.
That's right.
In which he suspects that is actually representing the fossil. If we could go back to the image of the fossil itself, I'm curious to hear about this from you, Kathleen and Melanie. So beautiful.
So do you want to go first, Kathleen?
Well, there's a couple things about it. The genus Acer is the genus for maples, and there's this common leaf that's found fairly often that is called Acer articum, and sometimes we put it in quotes because we don't really think it's a maple. We think it might be something else. What's interesting to me about this, and that's what the outline of it looks like, but what's interesting to me, Melanie, are those chevrons. See the V's? That's really weird. I don't think that shows up on those. So that's kind of confusing me a lot. Because
I have never seen those like that.
it looks like a couple, it looks like 2 different things to us. It looks like what your person who found it is saying it, again, found in our guidebook and all. Exactly. So they had a very good eye for that. But then it has these funny, there's see the V's. If you look at the upside down V's going between the veins.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a weird thing. That's a thing that you find in sycamore leaves a lot. And this doesn't look a thing like a sycamore leaf. So it's sort of confusing, like so many of our things can be sometimes. I think that's real. That's not a preservation thing. That's real.
That's real. I mean, and that's the thing is, like, people say, well, do you just need 1 fossil or 2 fossils? And sometimes somebody has a beautiful specimen and they say, well, they can keep that leaf, but you want to keep this one. And sometimes we just need all these different colorations, these different preservations to get different details. And so in this case, the details of the veins is something that's very rarely preserved. And Kathleen or Carl, if you're out there listening, I know Kathleen's there. Sometimes with this particular leaf type, it's thicker. And these thicker leaves, as many of you are aware, they charcoalize. And so this is a rare case where there's been a lot, the way it's split or just the way it was preserved, or maybe the waxy surface of it was
folded on itself a little bit there on the left.
Yeah, but it provides us just a chance to see all the different vein patterns that are very difficult or very rare to ever find in any other sample of these.
Yeah, the reason they split down the middle, you get like they split through the middle of the leaf, and it's kind of like a leaf is kind of an envelope with a front and a back, and then it's open on the inside, and the inside usually doesn't preserve. And so when you hit the shale with a rock hammer and split it open, it's going to split on the plane of weakness. And usually it'll split, like sometimes it'll split straight across, and then sometimes like here it splits partly, but over there on the left it looks like it didn't split as evenly. So that stuff we're seeing on the left is really kind of strange. Wes had that. Wes did that sometimes because Wes lived in Seattle. He worked at the Burke Museum, and he would come over to Stonerose a couple of times, at least twice or three times or so, for workshops in a year. And he had that habit of leaving half of it one place and half of it another place, and just drove me crazy because he wanted to do that one time when we were finishing up a paper, and I said, "No, we can't do that. We need both halves." But so there still are some that are probably part here and part there at the Burke.
Well, it's just a gorgeous, gorgeous specimen. And thank you again, Scott, for sending this in. It really is special. And the background, the story, the letter, the ID book, it's just a wonderful, wonderful thing you put together for us. It makes it much easier on me. So thank you. Thank you again, Scott, for submitting this to us for our show today. And this is number 3. So we just have 2 left, and we're going to move on.
With time, I know I don't know how long you want to take with this, but would you mind going through the first 4 or 5 real quickly that I didn't get to see? The 10,
Yeah,
9,
can we do that? Can we go back real quick to number 10? And if you want to do the camera on number 10, I do have it here. So this is
Oh, yes, I know that one.
You remember this one, Kathleen?
That's the type specimen of Corylus johnsoni that we described.
Yeah, guess who found this one, Kathleen?
I didn't find it, but we used it in a paper.
Right, but do you know who actually split this one and found it?
Somebody should have.
I could tell you who. Yours truly. I found this one.
I didn't know that you found it. Okay.
I did.
I just know that when we went to it's the what we call the type specimen for this.
Yep.
It has pretty things on it. And we had a bunch, about maybe 40 or 50 of these that we put together to write the paper, and named it for Kirk Johnson. And it's like a hazelnut or a filbert. When you find them in the woods, they're in this husk-like thing like this. And they were actually
it's just quite a variety. So gorgeous. So gorgeous. So that was number 10.
Well, that's exciting.
And then at number 9, we have our little volunteer doggy Ruby with a sycamore leaf that she did actually find, turning over leaves at the site.
Great.
It just has gorgeous color. I just love the colors in this one. Nice. Even though it's a fragment, it's just like this beautiful, beautiful find.
Lovely.
So that was our number 9. And then Norm Terry sent in at number 8 a really incredible pine cone.
Oh, it's beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah. And if you show that second image, it's just amazing.
Yeah, it does look like it has some more 3-dimensionality to it than you usually get.
Yeah, it's intact, and it's gorgeous, really gorgeous. I was saying of this one, I'm kind of jealous. I've never found a cone like this, and it's just amazing. So that one's from Norm Terry. That's number 8. And then number 7, we had a fish that Carl Volkman found.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
It's the only fish we have in our top 10. It's actually the only fish that folks sent in, and I know it's not as common to find fish here at the Stonerose fossil site. It's a very cute guy. Love him. And then at number 6, Robert Dashiell sent in.
Okay, that's where I came in.
The yew tree, yeah. So this is where you joined us.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And I just love his presentation with that jawbone. It's so great.
Okay, yeah.
All right, so let's jump in. Let's see. So number 2, do you want me to let you know which image we need now, Bruce? It would be Greg Wilson's, and I have the wide view. Perfect. Okay, so coming in at number 2 of the top 10 Stonerose fossils for 2021. This is from Stonerose volunteer Greg Wilson. And before we go to a close-up of the image, I'd like to just read what Greg sent in for this one. And he says, part of my routine at Boot Hill, which is the digging site, is to increase the leg room under the cracking tables. As I remove rock, I search for fossils by opening the seams, tossing all the rest aside. One such quote-unquote reject happened to land just right and split open. I didn't notice this until I paused, looking over to see 2 little stars twinkling at me. And then he asks, can we see them in this picture? Kathleen and Melanie, do you see a fossil here? I'm just curious. I can see it, but I know where to look.
I can see
It's like
fragments of
Where's
these fragments.
Waldo times 1,000.
Okay, I think I see it now. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, let's go to the close up, please. That's not it, but just bear with us.
There we
There it
go.
is. Oh, the Florisantia. Look at that.
Nice, very nice.
Gorgeous. We did get a number of Florisantia submitted for our top 10. That's why it made it up to number 2. It is a very popular fossil, and you can see why. It is just so beautiful. I'm wondering, Melanie or Kathleen, if you have anything you'd like to say about this particular find.
Melanie?
Yeah. Well, one of the things that everybody talks about with Florisantia is, number one, remind people that it's not a rose, even though it's, the stone rose is uses,
Nickname
you
for
know,
it.
it's something that would be close in a group that they call the Malvales.
Well,
Some
at
that
this point too.
Yeah, and so you have hibiscus in there, and you have the chocolate family, the Sterculiaceae, and some of these things. And when we have these fossils, this is an odd fossil that, we put it in the Sterculiaceae, the chocolate family now.
No, we put it. Okay, the story is what happened is there used to be 4 families, but then there was this thing that happened because people study and find and merge families together. So it used to be just in Malvales, which is the order, the next step up, without knowing which family it went in. And so Steve Manchester is the one who did a lot of the description on it. And then he's published it several years ago now. But now, a couple of years ago, they decided that all of the things in that order should all be merged into one family. And so you had the Malvaceae, which is the family of cotton, hibiscus, okra, and hollyhocks. You had the Tiliaceae, which is the linden tree. And those of you who might have gone to Europe, they plant linden trees a lot, or they call them basswoods. And so if you've ever been in Berlin and you've been on the main street that near the Unter den Linden, under the linden trees, that was the main drag that goes up to the Brandenburg Gate. That was the big main avenue that was cut across by the Berlin Wall. They had the linden trees. And then there was a third family, the Sterculiaceae, which includes cut chocolate and some other ornamental plants. We have a little plant here called bottle tree that they plant everywhere here. And then the fourth one was called the Bombaceae, and that was a tropical family that made these huge monster trees. And so anyway, they merged the 4 together. So now it would technically be in the Malvaceae. And so it's kind of closely related to sort of like, I don't know which part of it, sort of like chocolate. So it's kind of related to both cotton and chocolate and this linden tree and this tropical thing. And I know Steve had, sometimes you do find the little flower bits. So this is kind of like what you'd call a floral bract. So it's not petals. It's actually, like a poinsettia, you have the colored leaves aren't really petals. Or like where I live, we have this shrub called bougainvillea that grows all over the place that has these pink bracts. And so they're really kind of the leafy thing outside of but he's published some that have the little teeny itty bit of flower bits in the inside, the middle there. But I think what happened was he didn't have exactly enough of all of the parts to be able to conclusively get it closer. And so it's still kind of taxonomically a little bit weird. And then the other thing that's kind of neat about them is this one's got, little petals. You find them with a lot of variation. You find some that are almost completely round, and you find ones that are really deeply lobed, and then you find ones that are somewhat partly lobed like this. So I know in our little guidebook, we illustrated like about half a dozen of them together to show the variation that you get.
See, now something that I was keying in and I was going to go off towards is, okay, when we talk about things in like a chocolate tree, cacao, you would see a tree if you would go into the tropics and see one. They produce many, many flowers, but they're on the trunk.
Right on the.
And if you think about it,
so does the kapok plant is the tropical one does that too. It makes the flowers right on the trunk.
Yeah.
The plant.
And so you have and you think about it, we find all of these flowers. I mean, it is, and you always just find the flowers loose like that.
Mm-hmm.
And so sometimes we think about, well, where were these flowers born?
No, but then you have things like hollyhocks. Think about hollyhocks or okra, or they make their flowers kind of in a spike, and then you get things like cotton or hibiscus. They kind of have petioles and stuff on their flowers, and then tilia, the linden tree makes a flower that comes. It has a little tongue-like thing that sticks out, and then the flower sticks up out of it. Kind of a weird-looking little structure.
So this family or these groups of families or this super order, whatever the people who are sequencing DNA or
Family.
are doing with them,
Yeah,
how
I
they're
think it's called a
using them.
family now.
Yeah. Um, it's interesting because it's fun to look at these and find these loose flowers and this unit, and it's like, okay, where did it come from? Where was it produced on the plant? And to me, that's one of the cool mysteries. It's fun to have a mystery, and I think the whole mystery with this particular fossil is how many of those were produced on the tree? How were they arranged? What kind of odd arrangements did they have? Because it's just so weird to find all of these just dispersed the way they
But then
are.
we also, when we do find flowers, maybe Melanie might have talked about this a bit, but lots of times we do find lots of little individual flowers, and they usually are just floating out there. And so we think that they're not, that they're, think about if you're in a little pond or a lake or even a creek or something, and there's the water will kind of pull up a bunch of plant debris. And so if you have something little and lightweight, like this is how you find a lot of the insects too, where you find it's in what we would call the float, or the stuff that just floats on the top. So you do get the flowers kind of separated from the stems that way. Of course, plants have that annoying way of falling apart anyway, so we have a cherry flower or and prunus that we described a couple of years ago that has all the little parts except the petals fell off. But you
Mm.
think about it, you don't, petals fall off really easily on things like cherry trees and apple blossoms and things. So it's doing what it's supposed to do.
Think of how long that floral arrangement lasts.
Yeah.
Yeah, not long enough.
Not long
So
enough.
that was our number 2 in our top 10. So just before we get to number 1, I want to again thank Melanie and Kathleen for joining us today. And I really want to extend a huge thank you to all of our fossil hunters who sent in these gorgeous images and these interesting stories. It was so fun
Yeah.
to go through all of these. So here we are with number 1. And this was submitted by our former Stonerose curator, Lisa Barksdale. And this is an apple leaf, and it is just so gorgeous. This specimen was found by Wes Weir. And, one thing that I think is so interesting, when I first came to Stonerose years ago and learned that we had all of these members of the Rose family, and then started learning, well, what is in the Rose family? And then finally understanding, wait a minute, we have the oldest apples, like the oldest evidence in the fossil record of apples on Earth. Like Washington's known for apples.
Mhm.
So I'm just so happy to see this gorgeous specimen and that it made it to number 1 on our top 10 Stonerose fossils. I love it so much. And it's even just so beautiful the way it looks, the shape of it, the detail and the venation. It's just an incredible specimen. Just incredible. So I don't know, Melanie or Kathleen, what you want to talk about apples here, but I could just stare at this fossil all day long. I love it. If you come to Stonerose, by the way, it is in the interpretive center. It is here in the display, so you can see it up close and personal. It's behind glass. But it's just gorgeous. So thank you, Lisa.
Wes and his friend Don Hopkins, a lovely man who worked with him for many years and still is working at the Burke as a volunteer, had a series of, Wes wrote a series of papers in Washington Geology, which was the journal of the not the Geological Survey of, but one of the agencies, the state agencies. And one of the papers they wrote was called the Eocene Orchards. And that was the thing that he brought up, was he kind of compared, it was kind of a popular sort of article. But yeah, and that's what Melanie and I've worked now for a while, and we've looked at a bunch of different things in the rose family. So you think of things in the rose family, obviously roses. We don't have true roses yet. They show up in Florissant, but don't quite have the true Rosa genus yet. But we've got a lot of the berry-like things. We know we have a rubus, which is the blackberry genus, raspberry, blackberry genus. We've got, what else, Melanie? Sorbus.
Oh man, we got Amelanker.
Hawthorn, Amelancar is called serviceberry. It's a pretty common thing. We have spirea, which is something that you might know as bridal wreath. It makes lots of these little white flowers.
We do have rubus, but we really haven't described.
Yeah. Then we have this weird plant called Neviusia, which is called snow wreath, is its common name. And what's really weird about it, it's one leaf. And actually we had it from, and Carrie as another one related to it. It actually comes from, the original one came from 1 Mile Creek, but I think we have one at Republic now too. But what's weird about it is this leaf occurs, when you look at all the evolution of the rose family, it's down toward the base. You had one kind of leaf with this genus name that was all over the southeastern US. And then you had the other kind. No, that was the one species that was known forever, was the one there. And then a bunch of years ago now, some people at Berkeley were out hunting, live plants, and the creek had gone down, the water had gone down, and they got across to this obscure place, and they found this leaf. They said, "Oh, it's rosaceae." Oh, wait a minute. And it turned out to be a second species of this Neviusia. Neviusia was named for this minister. His name was Nevius or something. But anyway, and it was a short, fat, round one. And then we have the fossil, and the fossil looks more like the one from California. And it's kind of weird to get. You get these these disparate things where you get the related things in two very different places. But this one was kind of really special because we had, and then Wes got really excited about it, and he wrote to Ledyard Stebbins, who was a famous botanist who was really interested in all kinds of plants and things. I was really proud that he got a letter back. And so we actually wrote it up a few years ago. And so there's a lot of things in the rose family. Then we have those weird leaves that we think might be hybrid leaves that are in that family.
See, that's the joy of having so many people come to Stonerose and so many people who are digging. One of the things that's special about Stonerose is there's always somebody there. There's always somebody collecting. And so for somebody like that would be at the Smithsonian or the Field Museum, or comes in, maybe does field work for a month somewhere once every year, they don't have a big sample size, and you do not get to see all the different ranges of variation. And so if we didn't have all of the people who come to Stonerose and dig, if people didn't come to Stonerose, we'd never be able to do the kinds of work we do when we address things like hybrids.
The other interesting thing that happens is you go through different seams of the rock, and every once in a while you'll hit a vein that's almost all one thing. So we had this weird tiny little fruit a few years ago called Paleocarpinus, and it occurred at the locality, which is sometimes known as Gold Canyon and also known as Grandpa's Fossil Patch. And that's almost all of them came from that one little kind of locality. So as you go through the history, and that's why the documenting is so wonderful, that you're documenting the people who collect the fossils, which we always honor in our papers. We always name who collected them if we possibly can. But you also have a history of where, 1 year you find all of these things, and 1 year, and it's not. Sometimes it's a bit of like recognition, but a lot of times it's really the way the fossils are actually distributed, that you get a little pocket that has a whole lot of that particular thing in a particular place. So as you go down through the layers, you're sampling different things. But yeah, I think the thing about Stonerose that is amazing is the model where you are doing both things, that you are using this resource both for the public and for education and entertainment and nature and appreciation, so that the public can really participate. And then you're also making it available, evaluating what you have as you go and making it also available to professionals. So I don't know of any other place the places you can dig fossils and things, but I don't know of any other place that really has that way of combining both things. Some places let you dig fossils, other places they let you dig, but you have to give everything to them, and then you can't take anything home. And so I think Stonerose does a really good job of splitting the difference. And I think, sometimes, you kind of, they might find something beautiful and say, and then they take it from you. But on the other hand, we get to use it and make it available and publish it. And so when we put the guidebook together, which we're redoing now, I did it 10 years ago, what happened that was really interesting, Melanie, you remember this, is when we had the little reception, we had the fossils, photographs of the fossils, then we had people's names, the finders, we call them, the finders had written, or the diggers, we had their names writing up alongside of each specimen. And what people did, it was just like in high school where you get your yearbook out and you have people sign it. People took them around and had each other sign their fossil. And so we know that people have a lot of ownership in what they find. That's what's so special, and that's one of the things that I think makes Melanie and me paleobotanists in the first place, is that thing that everybody gets, the magic of being able to crack it open and be the first person who's seen it. It's been sitting there in the rock for 50 million years, just minding its own business, and we crack it open and go, oh, You're the first person who cracks it open and gets to say, oh, and then hands it to somebody else. And then they look at it and go, I don't know what it is.
And
It
it's so
really is
magical.
such a unique place. Yeah. And I just want to mention too, talking about Stonerose itself and how folks are digging and it's so prolific. We are working now to improve our center. So just this month, we're launching a capital campaign in which we're going to take this new building that we acquired. It's new to us, and modernize it and add a real interpretive display so folks can come and walk through and learn about the geologic history and what was the environment like when these fossils were formed and how did they form and why are they important? You know, what is it about this site and these fossils that we really want to pay attention to and learn from? So it's really an exciting time for us. We're going to have classroom space for students. I think Kathleen and Melanie, you'll be happy. We're going to have a dedicated space for researchers so that you can access the collection and have a nice space that you can kind of spread out your stuff and get your work done. So you won't be kind of cramped in our old basement like you used to have to do. So we're really excited about the capital campaign. If you want more information on that, visit us on our website, stonerosefossil.org. But again, I want to thank really the fossil hunters here, because Stonerose wouldn't be Stonerose without all of you coming out, digging in the hill, donating things to us for science. It's just really all because of you. And so we're so happy to honor you and your finds in this first ever top 10. And I'm curious, maybe we'll revisit this topic maybe a few years from now and see what comes up as kind of the latest and greatest in the top 10 fossils at that point. But also I want to thank you, Melanie and Kathleen, for being here with us yet again for our second installment here of our Conversations series. And we hope to see you next time. So we're arranging another show, and I think our topic is going to be having our graduate students featured. So we will learn from some students that can tell us, why are they so inspired to pursue this kind of learning? And what is it like to really dive in and do this work? So beyond looking at the specimen itself, all the background that they have to do, all of the vast kind of array of knowledge that they need to gather to really be a paleontologist. So that'll be our next episode. And as soon as we decide on a date and time for that, we will publish that on the website and on Facebook. So again, I thank everyone for sending in these gorgeous finds. And thank you, Kathleen and Melanie. And I want to send a special shout out as we sign off to our folks behind the scenes who make it all a reality. And tonight we have Travis and Bruce helping us here. So thank you to Travis and Bruce. And we'll see you next time. Take care.